The rain hammered against the crystalline dome of the Galactic Military Academy like bullets against armor. Inside, Cadet Maya Chen stood at rigid attention, her brown eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing the latest casualty reports from the Outer Rim conflicts. 57 human colonies. Gone. Wiped clean from existence by the hegemony forces. Her jaw clenched. Every name on that list represented families, children, dreams turned to cosmic dust. Another glorious victory for our enlightened alien overlords, she muttered under her breath, her voice dripping with barely contained venom. Did you say something human? The voice slithered across the training bay like ice water down a spine. General Vex'tar, a towering Zephyrian with scales that shifted from deep purple to black, depending on his mood, approached with the predatory grace of a hunter who had never known defeat. Maya's spine straightened further. If that was even possible. No, sir. Just admiring the tactical brilliance of our recent operations. The sarcasm in her voice was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Several alien cadets nearby chittered in what might have been amusement or anticipation. Hard to tell with the Chithera species and their insectoid features. Vex'tar scales darkened to obsidian. You humans always did have trouble understanding your place in the natural order. His 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on his elongated skull, fixed on Maya with the intensity of targeting lasers. Perhaps a demonstration is needed. The training bay fell silent, except for the distant rumble of thunder. Even the automated training drones seemed to hover motionlessly, as if sensing the electricity building in the air. Maya felt her heart rate spike, but her expression remained carved from stone. Sir, with all due respect, I understand my place perfectly. Her voice carried the kind of calm that preceded storms. The question is whether you understand yours. A collective intake of breath rippled through the assembled cadets. Speaking to a hegemony general like that was career suicide at best, actual suicide at worst. But Maya had stopped caring about her career the moment she watched the orbital bombardment footage from New Terra Prime. Vex'tar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound like breaking bones. Insolent little ape. Do you know how many of your pathetic species I have personally sent to the void? Not enough, apparently. Since I'm still here annoying you. The slap came faster than a viper strike. Vex'tar's armored hand, each finger tipped with natural bone spurs, connected with Maya's cheek with a sound like a rifle crack. The force would have sent most beings sprawling, but Maya Chen was not most beings. Time seemed to slow as she absorbed the blow, her head turning with the impact but her feet remaining planted. In that suspended moment, she felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. Not pain, not shock, something far more dangerous. Clarity. Her left hand moved with fluid precision, catching Vex'tar's extended wrist. Her right hand cupped his elbow. Basic human anatomy might seem inferior to alien biologists, but they had never studied a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of violence. 1 second. Pressure applied at the precise angle. 2 seconds. Torque applied against the joint's natural resistance. 3 seconds. The satisfying pop of cartilage separating. For seconds, General Vex'tar, terror of 3 star systems, was on his knees screaming. Impossible, he gasped, cradling his twisted wrist against his chest. Purple blood, thick as syrup, dripped from between his scales where the bone had pierced through. Maya released him and stepped back, flexing her fingers casually. You know what the real difference is between humans and the rest of you enlightened species? She asked, her voice conversational despite the chaos erupting around them as other instructors rushed forward. We don't just study war. We live it. We breathe it. We make love to violence and raise our children on bedtime stories about heroes who died fighting impossible odds. She tilted her head, studying Vex'tar's shocked expression like a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. You've spent so long being apex predators that you forgot something important. She crouched down to meet his eyes, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the suddenly silent bay. Prey animals fight dirty. The medical team arrived, their anti-grav stretcher humming, as they loaded the moaning general. As they carried him away, Maya heard him rasping instructions to his aide, something about immediate court-martial and public execution. She laughed. actually laughed. The sound echoed off the dome like breaking glass. Cadet Chun, Commander Thylix, a reptilian saurian with ceremonial scars covering his snout, pushed through the crowd. What have you done? Taught an anatomy lesson, sir. Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. Apparently, Zephyrian wrist joints have the same structural weakness as human ones. Who knew? This is not a joke, human. Thylix's forked tongue flicked nervously. Do you have any idea what you've done? General Vex'tar commands the Seventh Fleet. He has the authority to glass entire worlds on a whim. Then maybe he should learn to keep his hands to himself. You will be court-martialed within the hour. They will make an example of you. Your entire species will suffer for this insult. Maya's expression finally changed. The sardonic amusement faded, replaced by something infinitely more dangerous. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every human who had ever stared death in the face and spat. Commander, let me explain something about humans that apparently got lost in translation during our integration into your glorious hegemony. She stood slowly, and despite being nearly a foot shorter than the towering saurian, he took an involuntary step backward. We have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. You've been so focused on our soft speaking that you forgot about the stick. Her eyes swept the assembled alien cadets, most of whom were now backing away despite their numerical advantage. But here's what really terrifies you, isn't it? It's not that I broke your precious general's wrist. It's how easy it was. For seconds. That's all it took to bring down one of your most decorated warriors. She turned toward the exit, then paused. Oh, and Commander, when they haul me before their tribunal, make sure they understand something. I'm not the exception among my species. I'm the rule. We've just been polite up until now. The training bay doors hissed open, and Maya walked through them with the casual confidence of someone who had just declared war on the galaxy. Behind her, the silence stretched until someone finally found their voice. Should we stop her? Asked a nervous Kithra cadet, his compound eyes reflecting fear. Commander Thylix stared at the empty doorway for a long moment. With what? He asked quietly. She just dismantled a hegemony general like he was made of paper. What exactly do you think we could do to someone like that? As Maya walked through the corridors of the academy, other cadets pressed themselves against the walls to let her pass. Word traveled fast in closed environments, and the story was already growing in the telling. By the time she reached her quarters, she had apparently beaten Vex'tar unconscious with his own severed arm while reciting human poetry. She smiled at that version. Humans did love their stories. Her personal communicator was already blinking with 17 urgent messages, 3 from her family back on Earth, worried about news reports, 4 from Academy administration demanding her immediate surrender, 10 from human cadets stationed throughout the sector, all saying variations of the same thing. Finally, when do we start? Maya sat on her narrow bunk and stared out the porthole at the alien stars wheeling slowly overhead. Somewhere out there, General Vex'tar was being treated for his injuries and probably planning her execution. The Hegemony Council would convene. Sanctions would be discussed. Punishments would be decreed. She pulled up her personal files and began composing a message, not to her family, not to the Academy, to someone far more important. The recipient was listed simply as Dad, Emergency Contact. But Admiral James Chun, commander of the Human Colonial Defense Force, would understand the coded phrases in her message, the ones that meant, it's time, the gloves are coming off. As she typed, Maya found herself humming an old Earth song her grandmother had taught her, something about getting knocked down and getting up again. The irony wasn't lost on her. The hegemony had spent decades integrating humanity into their vast galactic empire. They had studied human physiology, psychology, military doctrine. They thought they understood what made humanity tick. They had made one crucial error in their analysis. They had assumed that submission was the same thing as surrender. Maya finished her message and sent it with encryption protocols that would make it look like routine cadet correspondence. Then she lay back on her bunk and closed her eyes, listening to the rain against the dome and the distant rumble of thunder. Tomorrow would bring trials, tribunals, and probably public execution. The hegemony would make her a symbol of human brutality and alien superiority. What they wouldn't realize until it was too late was that she had just become something far more dangerous than a symbol. She had become a catalyst. And catalysts, by their very nature, changed everything they touched. The storm outside was getting stronger. Maya smiled in the darkness and waited for the lightning to strike. Hashtag the alien general slapped the human cadet. She snapped his wrist in 4 seconds. HFY story. Hashtag part 2. The reckoning. Dawn broke over the academy like a blade cutting through flesh. Maya Chen had slept exactly 3 hours, but her eyes were sharp as laser cutters when the security detail arrived at her quarters. 6 guards, all different species, all armed with neural disruptors, all looking like they would rather be anywhere else in the galaxy. Cadet Chen, the lead guard, a beetle-like Kithra named Vex'tar, clicked nervously. "You will come with us. The tribunal waits." Maya stood slowly, adjusting her uniform with deliberate precision. "Of course they do. Tell me, Vex'tar, how is our beloved General Vex'tar this morning? Still having trouble with his grip?" The guard's compound eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement. "The general is recovering. His wrist has been surgically repaired, but the doctors say he may never regain full mobility." "Tragic," Maya deadpanned. "I am absolutely devastated by this news." As they walked through the academy corridors, Maya noticed a change in atmosphere. Where yesterday there had been the usual bustle of military life, now there was tension so thick you could cut it with a plasma torch. Alien cadets pressed themselves against walls as she passed, their various eyes tracking her movement like she was a dangerous predator, which she supposed she was. The tribunal chamber was a massive amphitheater designed to intimidate. Tiered seating rows in concentric circles, filled with representatives from every major hegemony species. At the center sat the High Arbiters, 5 beings who collectively wielded the power to condemn entire star systems. Maya walked to the defendant's platform with the casual confidence of someone attending a dinner party. The energy restraints activated automatically, creating a shimmering field around her that would paralyze most beings instantly. She tested the bonds experimentally, then shrugged. "Impressive technology," she said to no one in particular. "Though I have to ask, if you need this much hardware to hold one human cadet, what does that say about your superiority?" A ripple of angry chittering and hissing swept through the chamber. High Arbiter Kexanar, an ancient Zephyrian whose scales had faded to silver with age, raised one gnarled hand for silence. "The defendant will show respect to this tribunal," he intoned, his voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Respect is earned, not demanded," Maya replied pleasantly. "Though I suppose that concept might be foreign to a species that conquered half the galaxy through technological superiority rather than actual merit." The chamber erupted. Delegates roared, screeched, and in one case began rapidly changing colors in what was probably profanity. Through it all, Maya stood calmly, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Silence." Kexanar's voice boomed through amplifiers. "Human, you stand accused of assault upon a superior officer, violation of the hegemony code of military conduct, and incitement of species-based violence. How do you answer these charges?" Maya pretended to consider this seriously. "Well, let me see. Assault? I prefer to think of it as a practical demonstration of comparative anatomy. Violation of military conduct? I followed Academy regulations to the letter. Article 7. Section 3 clearly states that cadets may use appropriate force to defend themselves from unprovoked attacks. General Vex'tar was disciplining an insubordinate cadet. Another arbiter, a slug-like Molecule named Vex'tar, oozed forward. His actions were within established parameters. Interesting interpretation, Maya mused. "Tell me, Arbiter Vex'tar, does your species have a saying equivalent to play with fire, get burned? Because we humans have quite a few variations on that theme." Before anyone could respond, the chamber's main doors burst open. A figure in the distinctive blue and gold uniform of the Human Colonial Defense Force strode in, flanked by 2 Marines in full combat armor. The newcomer's insignia marked him as an admiral, and his bearing suggested he was accustomed to being obeyed. "This tribunal is closed outside observers," Kexanar snarled. Security, remove these humans immediately. Admiral James Chen, Maya's father, remove his cap and smile with the kind of warmth that preceded explosions. I think there's been a misunderstanding, High Arbiter. I'm not here as an observer. I'm here as a diplomat. He produced a sealed data crystal and tossed it onto the central podium. Official communication from the Terran Assembly to the Hegemony Council. You might want to read it before you proceed with this farce. The crystal projected a holographic document that made several arbiters recoil. Maya couldn't read it from her position, but judging by the sudden silence, it wasn't a request for better cafeteria food. This is a formal declaration of independence, Kexan whispered. From the Terran Assembly, effective immediately. That's correct, Admiral Chen replied cheerfully, along with a demand for the immediate release of all human military personnel currently held by hegemony forces, including my daughter. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted. Screens flickered with emergency communications, and somewhere an alarm began wailing. Through it all, Maya felt a surge of pride, so intense it nearly knocked her over. You cannot simply declare independence, Arbiter Vex'tar protested, his slug-like form quivering with indignation. The hegemony does not recognize such unilateral actions. The hegemony doesn't have to recognize it, Admiral Chen said with the patience of someone explaining basic mathematics to a child. We're not asking for permission. We're informing you of a decision that has already been made. Your species represents less than 2% of the galaxy's population, Kexan hissed. You control fewer than 50 systems. You think you can stand against the might of the hegemony? Maya laughed, a sound like breaking crystal that cut through the chamber's din. You know what's funny? Yesterday, you thought one human cadet couldn't stand against one hegemony general. How did that work out for you? The Admiral's smile widened. My daughter raises an excellent point. You've spent so long studying our weaknesses that you never bothered to understand our strengths. For instance, did you know that every human colony has been stockpiling weapons and supplies for the past 18 months? Impossible, Vex'tar gurgled. Our surveillance networks monitor all colonial activities. Your surveillance networks monitor what we allow them to monitor, Admiral Chen corrected. Did you really think we wouldn't learn to adapt after 3 decades under your rule? We've been preparing for this moment since the day we joined your precious hegemony. High Arbiter Kexanar's ancient eyes narrowed. Even if what you claim is true, you cannot hope to match our technological superiority. The hegemony fleet numbers in the hundreds of thousands. Quantity has a quality all its own, the Admiral agreed. But there's something to be said for motivation. You fight because you're ordered to. We fight because we choose to. And we choose to be free. Maya felt the energy restraints around her flicker and die. Someone had cut the power to the containment field. She stepped forward, rolling her shoulders to work out the kinks. The thing is, she said conversationally, you've been treating us like a conquered species for so long that you forgot we were never actually conquered. We joined the hegemony voluntarily, which means we can leave voluntarily. The Hegemony Council will never accept this, Kexan warned. There will be war. There's already war, Maya replied. You've been destroying human colonies for months. The only difference is that now we're going to fight back. Admiral Chen activated his communicator. Phoenix Leader, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Order Prometheus. The chamber's main display screen flickered to life, showing a tactical map of the galaxy. Red dots began appearing throughout human space, each one representing a military installation coming online. Weapons platforms, defensive fleets, and fortress worlds that have been hidden in plain sight for years. 57 human colonies, Maya said quietly, her voice carrying to every corner of the now silent chamber. That's how many you've destroyed. Millions of lives, snuffed out because you decided we were expendable. She turned to face the assembled arbiters directly. But here's what you didn't understand. Every human you killed, every colony you destroyed, every time you treated us like animals to be herded, you weren't breaking our spirit. You were forging it. The tactical display updated, showing hegemony fleets suddenly finding themselves outnumbered in dozens of systems. Apparently, the humans had been busy. This is madness, Vex'tar protested. You will be crushed. The hegemony has ruled for 10,000 years. Empires rise and fall, Admiral Chen observed. The one constant is change. Today, that change has a human face. Maya walked over to where General Vex'tar sat in the observer section, his injured wrist still in a bioregeneration sleeve. The proud alien warrior looked up at her with undisguised hatred. How does it feel, General? She asked softly. To know that everything you thought you knew about humans was wrong? Vex'tar's 4 eyes blazed with fury. This changes nothing. You are still an inferior species playing at being warriors. Maya smiled and patted his shoulder gently. General, you're absolutely right. We are inferior. We're smaller, weaker, and less technologically advanced than most species in the galaxy. But you know what we are. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. We're mean. We hold grudges. And we never, ever forget. The general's scales paled to a sickly gray. The hegemony made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. Admiral Chen announced to the chamber. They thought submission was the same as surrender. They were wrong. Maya turned back to the arbiters. So here's how this is going to work. You're going to withdraw all hegemony forces from human space. You're going to recognize our independence. And you're going to leave us alone. And if we refuse, Kexanar asked, then you're going to discover exactly why humans are the only species that actively seeks out the galaxy's apex predators for sport. Maya replied, we don't just hunt for food or territory. We hunt for fun. The chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of the Academy's life support systems. On the tactical display, more red dots appeared as human forces revealed themselves throughout the galaxy. Your decision, High Arbiter, Admiral Chen said, war or peace. But either way, humanity is done kneeling. Maya looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. Fear was a universal expression. It seemed they were finally beginning to understand what they were dealing with. One more thing, she added, almost as an afterthought. If any of you ever lay a hand on a human again, I will personally come for you. And I promise you, I won't be as gentle as I was with General Vex'tar. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Finally, High Arbiter Kexanar spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. The tribunal recognizes the sovereignty of human space. All hegemony forces will withdraw within 72 standard hours. Maya smiled, and for the first time in months, it reached her eyes. Excellent. It's been a pleasure doing business with you. As the humans left the chamber, Maya heard her father chuckle. You know, kiddo, when I got your message about teaching anatomy lessons, I thought you might be exaggerating. Dad, Maya replied, I haven't even started teaching yet. Behind them, the Galactic Military Academy began shutting down its operations. For the first time in 10,000 years, the hegemony was retreating. The age of human independence had begun with a broken wrist and a 4-second lesson in humility. Sometimes, Maya reflected, the smallest sparks created the biggest fires. And humanity had always been very, very good at playing with fire.